Amazon has been rated as one of my top stocks to buy here in 2024. But how much is Amazon stock really worth? I'm going to answer that question in this video on what I think Amazon stock is really worth using the discounted cash flow valuation method. I'm going to share with you precisely where I'm getting all of the numbers I'm going to use for this valuation, because inherent in this type of valuation are many estimates and assumptions. That's what makes this kind of valuation difficult and imprecise, is because we're using so many estimates and assumptions. But I'm going to share with you where I'm getting those numbers so you can decide for yourself whether the numbers are accurate, too high, or too low. Without further ado, let's get into this valuation.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
All right, one of the growth estimates I'm going to use is Amazon's earnings per share forecast for the next 5 years. According to the analysts on Wall Street that are following Amazon stock, they expect it will grow its earnings per share by 31.75% for each year over the next 5 years. Now, here's one of the difficulties and challenges I faced is I'm making a cash flow forecast, a free cash flow forecast, but I'm going to be using a earnings per share growth rate to apply to a free cash flow forecast. So that might be imprecise already to begin with, but I wanted to share with you so you can understand where I'm getting the number and the adjustment I'm making. All right, I need Amazon's current market price, which is $181 as of this recording. And I need Amazon's market capitalization, which is $1.9 trillion as of this recording. Also, I need the number of shares outstanding for Amazon. It now has 10.71 billion shares outstanding. And I need its free cash flow for the most recent period, which was $48.3 billion. That's where I'm going to base my starting point from to forecast its free cash flow over the next 5 years. And finally, I need its long-term debt, which was $54.89 billion as of its latest update. All right, so now that we have all of the estimates and numbers we're going to need, let's go ahead and start looking at our Amazon discounted cash flow valuation. Let me draw your attention first at the 2024 free cash flows, which I highlighted from Y-Chart, $48.34 billion. I forecasted out 6 years of free cash flow. In these 6 years, 5 of the years I forecasted using the short run growth rate, which I have here at 31.75%. This is the earnings per share estimate I got from Yahoo Finance. In the 6th year, I forecasted the company will settle down to a longer term growth rate of 5%. When I applied this method, I got the present value of Amazon's free cash flows of $425 billion. Now, in the 6th year, I needed that number in order to calculate the horizon value or terminal value, whichever way you've learned how to call this number. And according to this number, which collects all of the free cash flows that are expected from Amazon between 2030 and infinity, bringing those back to this point in time in 2029, those are worth $3.8 trillion in 2029. But we need to get the value of this horizon value in today's dollars, not in 2029 dollars, which are different because all of us would prefer to have money today versus money 5 years from now. That's why we need to discount these cash flows, because these cash flows are in the future and those are worth less to us than cash flows today. That's why we term this the discounted cash flow valuation method. So when we get that present value of the horizon value, it becomes $2.335 trillion. Now you're probably wondering what discount rate I'm using to discount these cash flows, and I'll draw your attention back down here to the bottom left-hand side. The weighted average cost of capital I'm using for Amazon is 10.29%. I got that by using the weighted average cost of capital method and the capital asset pricing model to get the cost of equity, which came in at 10.4% with a beta of 1.15, which I got from Yahoo Finance, the risk-free rate of 3.5%, and a market risk premium of 6%. Amazon's debt to equity ratio is 97% equity and 3% debt. And applying that framework gives me the weighted average cost of capital of 10.29%. And that brings me back to the present value of the horizon value, which was 2.335 trillion. We need to sum that together with the present value of the cash flows to give us the overall value of operations for Amazon, which was over $2.76 trillion. Now let me draw your attention here, because now that we have the value of the operations, we need to add how much cash Amazon has on hand and subtract how much debt it has. And when we add the $89 billion of cash, which I call non-operating assets, and we subtract the $54.9 billion in debt, we get the value of equity of around $2.794 trillion. When we divide that number with the 10.71 billion shares Amazon has outstanding, we get an intrinsic value per share. And that brings us down here, which is my prediction or my estimate using my discounted cash flow valuation method of how much I think Amazon stock is worth right now. How much is Amazon stock really worth? Well, according to my discounted cash flow valuation method, Amazon stock price is worth $260.93. Let me stop here and point out that even though this is a specific number, I don't want you all to be fooled by the apparent precision of this calculation. This is a very imprecise calculation, and don't take this final number as a decision point saying this is how much it's worth precisely. This should just be one calculation you utilize in your overall research. You should probably, and what I usually do, is not only get one intrinsic value per share. I will do a scenario analysis where I would apply several growth rates to determine a different value for Amazon stock according to those various growth rates. And I'll try them with you here while you're watching. Instead of a 5% long-term growth rate, if I applied a 6% long-term growth rate, you'll notice that Amazon's intrinsic value changes to $314 per share at a 0.06% growth rate. If I applied a 0.0% long-run growth rate, you'll notice that Amazon's valuation falls to $224 per share. So at various growth rates, the valuation changes, and it's informative to evaluate Amazon stock and any other business you're considering utilizing different growth rates. And when I'm doing this, I'll actually not only apply various growth rates to determine different estimates, I'll also apply various weighted average costs of capital to determine different valuations based on different costs of capital, based on different growth rates, so that I get a more comprehensive picture of what Amazon stock price could be worth using those different estimates. But the base case here at 5% gave me the intrinsic value per share of $260 for Amazon stock. And considering that the stock price is $181, that leaves a lot of upside for Amazon stock investors. Now, I've done a lot more analysis than just this on Amazon stock, and this was one of the steps I've utilized. Overall, I've utilized many other methods for valuing Amazon stock and placing Amazon stock on my list of top stocks to buy here in 2024. Hey everyone, so many of you have been asking about my investing strategy, and I'm excited to announce that I've written a book that's available for sale now that describes my 6-step investing framework for evaluating stocks. I've added the link in the description below.